What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the My Parents Office podcast. I am your host, Andrew Diaz. Today we have episode one, I believe 134. Um, yes, episode 134 of the show, right before the NFL draft. I know I've been a little bit inconsistent with episodes the past few weeks, but that's been due to classwork ramping up. We hit midterm time, got over the midterm hump, and now we are kind of rolling into finals. So I've been dealing with that, and then trying to find an internship for the summer has also hindered the podcast, me pumping out episodes like I used to. But still trying to get out episodes every few weeks or every few days. And I've also been writing a bunch too for Student Union and for Substack to keep up that pace of one blog a day. Before I get into this entire episode, which is going to be very draft centric, little Celtics playoff talk as well. Make sure you follow us on social media at My Parents Office on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. My Parents Office podcast on Facebook. Articles from the office on Substack. And then if you go to Student Union Sports, you could find my profile there. One of the articles up there that's probably about football right now is probably one of the ones I wrote, because I've been pumping out blogs for them right now, which has been pretty fun. It's cool having an editor kind of go over your stuff and put that up, because I never had that with the Substack. It was mostly just me writing my own stuff, and then if I messed something up, it was my dad texting me and saying, "Hey, you misspelled this," or "This is wrong," or something like that. So it's nice having an actual editor to go over your stuff, but just myself today on the episode. It's been real hard to record with Brett just because he's super busy down in New Jersey and I'm super busy up here. It's tough for us to kind of get on the same wavelength. So I think we'll probably get on that schedule for the summer where we'll be able to record pretty consistently together, which will be nice. I had some audio with Dave McCain, friend of the program, where we did a little NFL draft talk and some Doug Edert transfer stuff, but the audio wasn't great overall, like quality wise. Along with my new dog Nelly, barking up a storm in the backyard. So, or not in the backyard, actually in the living room right across from me. So that didn't really help. So, kind of had to spike that audio. Dave will be back on at some point soon. Love having him on. Love talking to him. He's a great guest and adds a lot to the show when he's on. Very informative about the Division I football scene and music in general too. He's just an all around great guest, great dude. So he'll be back on soon. That spiked audio didn't miss much. We just did a little bit of Steelers draft talk and then the Doug Edert transfer. But I don't know. I think this will probably go up on draft day, or I'll promote on draft day. So I'm recording this the night before. Think of it as draft day right now when you're listening to it. I am like a kid on Christmas. I love the NFL draft. This is I wrote in a blog that this is probably my second favorite day of the year. I'd go number one Thanksgiving. I'm power ranking. Number one Thanksgiving. Number two NFL draft round one. Number three, the kickoff of college football season. Usually not week 0, because week 0 is when you'll see like Hawaii play Wyoming or some weird game that it's nice. You kind of get blue balls from it because it's like back, but not sort of back. You only get a handful of games. I say not week 0, but week 1 when you get the big, like the big out of conference games that you won't see until playoff time, like Alabama versus USC a few years ago, or Notre Dame, Ohio State this year. So I'd say week 1 college football is 3, 4. I'd say Christmas Eve is probably number 4 for me, like the day of Christmas Eve, because you're preparing for Christmas. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the actual day of Christmas. I like Christmas Eve a lot better because there's less running around to do. I usually stay home with my family, which is nice, and I lay on the couch in sweatpants and play PS4 and then eat steak and open up a few presents. So, I mean, there's literally nothing more you can ask for. So I'd say Christmas Eve 4. So I got Thanksgiving 1, NFL draft round 1 dates as number 2, kickoff of week 1 college football season at 3, Christmas Eve 4, and then at 5, I'd probably go with last day of finals is like a great day. It is an all-time great feeling that you can have. So I'd probably put that as my top five, like my top 5 days of the year. Obviously, birthday is up there, probably in the top 10. Also, because it's July 4th, I'd probably have that at 6, maybe interchangeable at 5. So I'd say that's a tie. So July 4th, aka my birthday, along with last day of finals, because like last day of finals is such a thrill. If you've got like one that you're gonna knock out of the park, you go in, you walk out after feeling like $1,000,000 if you feel like you nailed it. You pack up your dorm, you still see some people around campus, ask, hey, what are you doing for the break? You probably will not see them until you come back on campus, and then you take off. I always throw on some good music. I'll stop at Mary Lou's and get a coffee, and then I'm out of here. I'm hitting 495 and getting back to Connecticut. So I'd probably put that as like my top 5, top 6 right there. Um, Enough of me ranking my favorite days of the year, though. Uh, the NFL draft. Um, this year is an interesting year. I would definitely say, because we're seeing almost a repeat of 2014 with the number 1 overall pick, where Travon Walker's stock is rising off of not his play but his pure athleticism, which didn't work out for really Houston when they drafted him. Clowney has had 41 sacks over, I believe, 8 seasons. That averages out to about 5.2 a game, or 5.2 in the season. But you have to look at the inconsistency factor with him. He's been injured, or even some seasons where he plays all 16 games, he'll have 0 sacks. He's had 3 seasons with 9 or more sacks. He's also had 4 seasons of 4 or I believe 5 or less sacks. So, I mean, if you take all that into consideration, not a great bang for your buck at number 1. He's also bounced around 4 teams with the Seahawks, Titans, Texans, and Browns. So the Travon Walker pick, if he goes number 1, I really do hate. I hate that pick a lot because Jacksonville has a lot of needs. They need offensive linemen to protect Trevor Lawrence. I mean, you saw what happened to Joe Burrow when he got hurt. The Bengals they didn't really address the offensive line position. Then they make a playoff run, they make it to the Super Bowl, and the offensive line again was an issue. And then they just went out and they just absolutely bolstered their O-line. They want to keep Burrow as healthy as possible, keep him around and let him dominate the league for as long as possible. Lawrence has the ability to play at a Burrow level if he has the offensive line protection. Granted, they just re-signed Cam Robinson to a 3-year, $54 million deal, brought in Brandon Sheriff, but Jawan Taylor's not a great right tackle. You could draft Ike Mekwonu. You could draft Evan Neal. You could even trade back in that still top 5, top 6, and get Charles Cross. Or even trade back even more, get a guard like a Kenyon Green or a Zion Johnson. But Walker's not the answer. I mean, you've got Josh Allen, you've got Clavon Chasen, like you've got trying to see who else they have for edge rush. They got Arden Key. Walker isn't really the need that they need to go after. If anything, I'd say corner, and then you could even trade back a few spots and grab a guy like Sauce Gardner instead. But wasting the number 1 pick on a guy that you really like because of his pure athleticism is a damn shame. It's not what Jacksonville needs, and I really do hate the pick if that's the way it goes down. But then again, I mean, so covers.com has, as of right now, I believe it's at minus 190 for Walker, number 1 overall. I know it's changing every like hour now. So the odds have been bumped up even more. Walker is at minus 225 to go number 1 overall. Hutchinson's at plus 250. Ike Mekwonu's at plus 450. Evan Neal's at plus 2,500. So those are really the guys that are going to be in contention to go number 1 overall. I still think Evan Neal should be the pick. He's 6'7", 351 pounds, and is almost like a generational talent, like a Quentin Nelson level talent that you won't see in the draft for a while. So whoever gets him gets a steal. And I feel like if Jacksonville passes on him, Detroit will also pass on him because they spent their first round pick last year on an offensive lineman in Penei Sewell. So I think it comes down to maybe the Texans take him, or even the Jets at 4, maybe the Giants at 5, Carolina at 6, but I don't see him slipping past there. A couple. I started writing out a couple bold takes. By the time this is out, you could have probably read it already. But I have like some bold takes, quote unquote bold takes for the draft. I don't know how bold they really are, but um, so I have uh, so I had five. So I have the Jets make a deal for Debo on draft night or the day of, like right before the draft. I think this is very much in contention to happen. The Jets are the front runners to get him. Debo clearly wants out of San Francisco, and the Jets have the collateral to make a deal for him. They give up the 10th overall pick. Maybe the tenth with other picks slash players will get them Debo, but maybe the fourth overall and just a fourth for Debo swap could do it for them. And that almost works out because do you want to reach for a guy like a Jermaine Johnson at 4, which they've been in talks of getting, and Kevon Thibodeau has kind of been out of the window for the Jets. I don't know. I mean, the 10th overall pick, there's going to be a lot of great players there, like a Kyle Hamilton, a Derek Stingley, maybe. Thibodeau could fall there. Jermaine Johnson could still be available at 10. Charles Cross could be available at 10. If they want to go receiver, Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Chris Olave could be available at 10. So if you do that, then you add Debo and give Zach Wilson at least some type of weapon. The thing that hurts Debo Samuel, though, is he diminishes his value by not wanting to be a running back in the NFL and not wanting to be this hybrid-esque player, which is ridiculously stupid on his part. You go from being the most versatile and most electric player in the game to now you're going to be a mid-wide receiver. If he plays strictly wide receiver, he's not going to be a top 10 guy. I mean, you've got there. I can name 10 better than him: Jefferson, Jefferson, Adams, Hopkins, Keenan Allen, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp. I'm not stalling. I'm just like legitimately Allen Robinson. I would take over Debo Samuel as a straight up receiver. Amari Cooper. Those are 10 guys I would take over him. And I probably missed one or two guys as well. Debo as a normal receiver isn't a threat. Debo as a hybrid player is the biggest threat in the league, maybe other than Cooper Kupp. So if Debo really wants a big payday eventually, he's going to have to play a hybrid position. But yeah, so I think the Jets are going to make a trade for him. There also is talks that the Jets are done with Mekhi Becton, which seems very premature, in my opinion. Becton's a mountain of a man, a great player. He's just been banged up a little bit. So health is definitely a concern, but to move on from Becton this early is definitely odd for me. I mean, it's a guy they drafted, I think, 2 years ago. So definitely going to be a weird move if they try to move Becton. But it also could work out for whoever they do move him for. San Fran wouldn't be really in the talks for that trade because they've got two good tackles like Trent Williams and Notre Dame guy Mike McGlinchey. So that wouldn't really be a component in the Debo Samuel trade. So I don't know who they could trade him to try to maybe move up. Maybe Atlanta, maybe the Giants. To move up from 10 to 5 and have back-to-back for number 4 and 5 picks. But so my other bold prediction, Kyle Hamilton will fall out of the top 10. As much as I think Kyle Hamilton is a top 3 player in this year's draft, I think that slow 40 is going to hurt him. That quote-unquote slow 40 that is not slow really whatsoever. When you look at other elite safeties, what they ran in the past, Harrison Smith ran a 4.61, or maybe he ran, I think, either a 4.58 or a 4.61. Justin Simmons ran, I think, a 4.59, and Jordan Poyer might have ran like a 4.57. Kyle Hamilton in that same range, and those three are top 10 safeties in the NFL. It's absolute hogwash that Kyle Hamilton will fall out of the top 10, but you know, that moves him closer to falling into the hands of the Vikings. Having a dual Notre Dame safety tandem would make me need a new pair of shorts. I would be so excited to see Kyle Hamilton and Harrison Smith kind of controlling the middle of the field for the Minnesota Vikings on kind of a brand new a new look defense with Zadarius Smith coming off the edge. Maybe hopefully a healthy Danielle Hunter. Harrison Phillips in the middle with Dalvin Tomlinson, Jordan Hicks at linebacker, kind of replacing Anthony Barr. I think was a great signing, and then you've got him alongside Kendricks, and then Pat Pete's back. So there's a lot of ways that they could go, but DB seems like the big move for the Vikings. So if Hamilton falls out of the top 10, they just got to pray that the Commanders don't go for him. And there's been a lot of talks now. I've been JPA Football is a great Twitter account. That's who I've been following and getting all my news from. So if you ever want to fact check me on a lot of this, just go to JPA Football, because when I say sources are saying or people are saying this, I'm mostly talking about JPA Football. They're saying that they're looking to grab a receiver possibly at number 11 overall. So that could mean Olave, Wilson, Drake London, one of those three guys. So if Hamilton slips to 12, I think it's an automatic you got to take him, unless by by a miracle Sauce Gardner's there. Then you take him, but I don't think that'll happen. So I think Hamilton will fall out of the top 10. Detroit has 2 first-round picks this year. I think they find their future gunslinger, their future leader, at pick number 32 that they got in the Matt Stafford Jared Goff trade. And I think that guy is. I think Pickett and Willis will be off the board by then. There's a chance Desmond Ritter's off the board, but if Ritter's available, I think they take him. I think Matt Corral is of the three that I think will be could or would be available. It's between Corral, Howell, and Ritter. I think Ritter would be the best fit for them because he's pro ready. He would compete with Goff right away. But if they want a guy to develop, then they go with Corral or Howell because he could sit behind Goff for both those guys could sit behind Goff for a year, maybe half a season, kind of take in the offense, see what they need to do, and then eventually be the man in Motor City. I think 32 is a great value pick, but if a guy like a Treylon Burks falls to them, then I think you got to take him. There's certain players you'd have to take if they somehow fall that low. I'd say he's one of them. Trying to think, maybe an edge like a George Karlaftis could be the pick if they maybe want to go dual edge. If he somehow falls there, a Devontae Wyatt wouldn't be a bad pick there, or even a Travis Jones from Connecticut if they want to stay on the defensive side of the ball. Daxton Hill could be another good pickup for them, but I think quarterback would be the move here at 32. My bold take number 4, I think 6 receivers come off the board in round 1. I think those 6 players will be Jameson Williams, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Treylon Burks, Drake London, and Jahan Dotson. I think teams in the market for receiver, Atlanta definitely, Philly definitely, New Orleans, possibly Detroit, definitely Green Bay, possibly the Titans, possibly the Patriots, and and the Chiefs, I think, too. So there's like 7 or 8 teams, I think, that are really in the market for a wide receiver 1 or 2 and could find it and then find that guy in this draft. I personally think the best receiver in the draft is Drake London, just off of his size and his catch radius. He's 6'5", was very successful at USC this year, but I could make the argument for all of those guys except for Jahan Dotson. I don't think Dotson's the best receiver in the draft. I think he's probably the 6th best, which isn't a knock on him. It's more of, wow, look at how great this receiver class is. It's incredibly loaded and filled with guys that are going to be real talents and playmakers at the next level. So I think 6 guys come off the board in round 1 tonight. And I don't know if that would be a record. Let me see. Most receivers taken. Let me see. So I think it's 2004 was the record. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that was 7. So for that to happen, I think you'd have to see. I don't think it'll happen. If anything, they may tie it with a guy like Christian Watson coming off the board at like real late to the Chiefs, maybe if a lot of teams bite on wideouts early. But they're not going to beat that 2004 class, I don't think, because there aren't guys that I would really constitute as round 1 guys. The only guy that teeters on it is Watson, kind of Dotson as well, but I wouldn't take a Bell or a Sky Moore here. That would just be an absolute reach when you could trade back and get him in the 2nd round. But those 7 guys that were taken it was Larry Fitzgerald, Roy Williams, Reggie Williams, Lee Evans, Michael Clayton, Michael Jenkins, and Rashawn Woods. So that was the round 1 record. 2020, that was 6 receivers in the first round. That was Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Reagor, Justin Jefferson, and Brandon Ayuk. And then they almost tied it if T. Higgins was taken around earlier, um, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, I don't think that record gets broken, but I think 6 guys will come off the board in night one. And then my final bold prediction of the NFL draft is that Carolina finds a replacement for Sam Darnold. Um, Darnold really isn't gonna cut it in the league as a starter. I think we've seen thus far with the Jets and with the Panthers. So now it's time for, I think, Carolina to move on. They hold the number 6 pick, which I think that might be the most valuable pick in this draft where they are, because they kind of control the tide of the draft, because I think the top 5 is semi-locked in by the players, but not where they're going. I think it'll be Travon Walker, Aiden Hutchinson, Ickham, Kevon Thibodeau, and Evan Neal. You can maybe mix Sauce Gardner in there. But I think number 6 is that real important one, because if they take Malik Willis, that throws Seattle off, because Seattle, I think, is in the market for Willis as well. Then they would take a corner like Stingley or Sauce. That also would hurt a team like Pittsburgh at 19, or no, Pittsburgh at 20, and New Orleans at 19, because I think they're also teams in the market for quarterbacks. And that would mean that maybe if Seattle is really dead set on finding their future quarterback in this year's draft, they would take Kenny Pickett. That takes Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett out of the mix. Now, is it like, it kind of becomes a reach situation for New Orleans or Pittsburgh? Do they kind of reach and take a Desmond Ridder, hold back, take receivers, offensive linemen, and then wait for round 2 or round 3 where they get a guy like a Howell, a Corral, a Carson Strong, a day 3 like a Bailey Zapp or an EJ Perry, a Brock Purdy? There's a lot of good players in this draft, but it's, what are you willing to give up if they want to trade up, or do they want to just hang back, or do you want to reach? So I think this Carolina pick is so instrumental in this year's draft. It's so important, that depending on what they pick, and that'll really be the one that turns the tide of everything within this year's NFL draft. I did my mock draft last time. I'll kind of go through it. I have one more updated one. That it's nothing. I don't think I really had any crazy changes. So I did change. I have Travon Walker going number 1, which really pains me to do. I have Hutchinson still at 2. The Texans taking Evan Neal at 3, which, that'll work good. And him and Laramie Tunsil, they'll move Titus Howard to guard and won't have Charlie Heck starting. Well, I like Charlie Heck a lot as a player, but he's not a very good player. So it's kind of a liability to have him out there. 4, I have the Jets still taking Ike Ekwonu. The Giants taking Kevon Thibodeau. So that's where I think my top 5 is going to be. I think those players can also be shuffled around, mismatched a little bit, but I think that's essentially what you'll see in the top 5. Then I have Carolina taking Malik Willis at 6. The Giants taking Charles Cross at 7. I originally had Atlanta taking. I think Atlanta is about as much of a lock to go receiver as you can be. And before I had Drake London, but I know I just said I think Drake London is the best receiver in the draft, but I've been going back and forth with him and Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson will probably be a better fit in Atlanta, but London would be nice to have as a big target when Calvin Ridley comes back, but I think they go Garrett Wilson. The Seahawks, I think, don't really reach on Pickett at 9. I know I had that originally like that. I think they take Sauce Gardner, just be such a talented player. The Jets, I originally had them, I think, taking Kyle Hamilton. I'm flipping it now to Florida outside linebacker, edge rusher Jermaine Johnson. I mean, Johnson's a monster player, a real good, real sound athlete, and I think will be a good addition to the Jets after they get a real good offensive lineman, a real powerful offensive lineman in Ike Ekwonu. I have the Washington Commanders taking Derek Stingley. I know I said receiver before, but Stingley's a real talent and a real guy you don't want to miss on. And corner is one of their biggest needs. I think they can wait on receivers just because of how good this receiver class is. Round 2 will have guys like a Christian Watson or a Sky Moore or a David Bell that they can kind of take a gamble on and take. Vikings, I have them taking Kyle Hamilton. 13, I think this pick stayed the same. Washington cornerback Trent McDuffie to the Texans. You get two good players, Evan Neal and Trent McDuffie. McDuffie's a real underrated corner in the draft because of guys like Derek Stingley and Sauce Gardner that have taken the spotlight. McDuffie's a tremendous tackler in the run game. I hated the pick before if Vikings took him, but if they take him now, I'll still be a little disappointed depending who's on the board. But I would overall be not mad. Baltimore taking Jordan Davis. Their interior D line's kind of beat up. Michael Pierce has not been a great player since he left Baltimore and was with the Vikings. So I have him taking Jordan Davis. Philly, I have him taking Drake London. Great pick here. Philly somehow they always botch the receiver pick. Devontae Smith seems to not be that botch. Maybe they repeat and take another good receiver, another guy that'll actually perform for them and not get moved to tight end. I have New Orleans taking Chris Olave. Chargers still taking Trevor Penning, even though I hate him as a player. Eagles taking George Karlaftis, just like a baby Ryan Kerrigan. Plays a lot, very, very similar. Will be a nice player to add to this Eagles defense. An old Eagles defense, I should say. I was going over it with Crow the other day, who's a big Eagles fan, and we were just kind of laughing about it. Brandon Graham's old. Derek Barnett stinks. Fletcher Cox is old. Hassan Reddick and Darius Slay are probably their two best players. And, that's not awesome. I mean, Slay's a real good player, but when Hassan Reddick is number 2 on your defense, it's not signs that it's going to be a successful 2022-2023 season. I have New Orleans taking Pickett here, kind of falling right into their lap. Pittsburgh gets mad about this because they can't keep the hometown kid. But they take Zion Johnson, the Boston College guard, who is a mammoth and has a great football IQ. And he can play all 3 interior positions, so I think he'll battle for a spot at either left guard, right guard, or center because all of those are essentially open on Pittsburgh's shaky, I think is the nice way to put it, their shaky O-line. I think this pick is about as much of a lock as it gets to, as long as Devin Lloyd's available. Is Devin Lloyd to the New England Patriots? How many times do I have to say it? I was at that game. I was at the Patriots-Buffalo playoff game. I was in Buffalo. Dante Hightower looked terrible. Kyle Van Noy looked terrible. I think they put Brandon King in. He looked bad. Brandon King's a special teamer that shouldn't have been playing linebacker. They were just overrunning holes and got gashed. They need to kind of revamp this defense in New England. And Devin Lloyd is probably, I think, one of the best athletes in the draft. If you look at his stats, I think 111 tackles, 8 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, I think 2 interceptions. The dude had a year for Utah and was the reason that they were a relevant squad and knocked off the teams that they did, like Oregon and I think Oregon twice this season. Green Bay, I have them taking Jamison Williams to be a wide receiver for them, especially it seems like there were trade talks of them getting Darren Waller, then those trade talks fell through pretty much just right away. Arizona taking defensive tackle Devontae Wyatt. This is a guy I think that could go as high as 14 and as low as middle of the round 2. I really don't know where Devontae Wyatt's going to fall. Dallas needs safety help, so they're going to take who I think is the second best safety in the draft. Michigan's Daxton Hill, and he's very versatile. Can play corner, can play high safety, can drop down and play a nickel, can play a little bit in the box. Real versatile player that I kind of like, and I'll eventually hate because he's playing for the Dallas Cowboys. Buffalo Bills, I think they'll take Andrew Booth at corner. They don't really have a lot of weak spots, and I think this would just be an overall good pick. I mean, they could take Nakobe Dean, but their linebacking core is already pretty good with Edmonds and Milano. So I don't think there's a need for it. But Andrew Booth would be able to learn behind Tre'Davious White and also could be a little more versatile and learn safety and play behind Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. Tennessee, they take linebacker Nakobe Dean. Linebacker help they lost, I believe, Jayon Brown and Rashaan Evans this offseason. So linebacker's a big gaping hole for them. Maybe they'll re-sign the boy Will Compton. If not, Nakobe Dean's the pick. Tampa Bay, Kenyon Green, the offensive guard, lost Ali Marpet, brought back Ryan Jensen, lost Alex Kappa, but they did trade for Shaq Mason. If they bring Kenyon Green in, it's like they really didn't lose anybody. It's obviously the loss of Marpet and Kappa hurts leadership-wise and experience-wise, but bringing Shaq and Kenyon Green in would be real good protection-wise. 28, Green Bay's back on the clock. I haven't taken Boye Mafe. Boye Maf. I don't know. I can't pronounce his name. The defensive end from Minnesota. Pass rusher is an issue, especially after they lost Darius Smith to the Vikings. So they want to replace that and kind of pick up and find a guy that could pick up his slack. Kansas City Chiefs, they've got back-to-back picks here. I think they go Burks and then Kaiir Elam, the Florida corner. Two SEC guys, two guys that'll get burned. Pretty much right away. Corner's a big weak spot for the Chiefs. They've got L'Jarius Sneed, but on that other side, really no one. So they do need a corner. The Bengals, if Tyler Linderbaum is there at 31 for them, they better be thanking the Lord and just absolutely screaming to the sky that he is available. Because that would be the ultimate gutting of their offensive line by keeping him at center, moving Ted Karras to right guard, Cap at a left guard, Jonah Williams sticks at left tackle, Lale Collins at right tackle. Absolute W offseason for them. And then I think Desmond Ridder to the Detroit Lions is going to be the pick there to cap off round one. I'm so excited about tomorrow night. I really am. Or I should say tonight when you're hearing this. But it's the NFL draft is like the one time of the year I really get jacked up for. So yeah, it's gonna be weird. I always like seeing it in New York, at Radio City, and I do like how they've been shifting locations, but I wouldn't be mad if they brought it back to New York, because if they did, I would probably go. And that would be a perk for me. But it also is that good classic feel that I like to it. And it's a familiar feel. Moving off the NFL a little bit, we saw the Boston Celtics get the sweep of the Brooklyn Nets, getting Kyrie and KD, sending them to Cancun a little bit earlier with LeBron and Ben Simmons and their whole crew. But I mean, what a series! And like I didn't follow it as much as a lot of other people did. I watched the best part of that series, I think, was game 2. I watched like the last quarter of the game. And I mean, you just watched Peyton Pritchard just absolutely play gritty. Tatum, Brown really, that was his game right there, and was hitting threes from everywhere on the floor. Even ones like he hit one with about 5 minutes left where he was like leaning into it. It was almost like a floater from 3 that he hit. It was just absolutely great to watch, because like Brooklyn's such a team. This is one of the real rivalries still left in the NBA, I think, is Brooklyn versus Boston. Especially for like comments Kyrie's made where he's called Boston a racist city. And you know, Boston did nothing but love Kyrie when he was here. So it really hurts when somebody that you really enjoyed watching kind of backstab you like he did. But Kyrie's a scumbag and probably one of the worst people alive right now. So I'm excited to send him home. To be honest, it's awesome to see him and KD go home. And KD, I talked to my dad about this a little bit. He was the one that originally brought it up, and then I watched, I believe it was game 3. So this was after game 2. We were talking, and he was like, KD just looks old now. Like he just looks like he may have lost a step. And you know, I'm not saying this as he's completely on the downfall. I still think he's one of the best scorers that the NBA has to offer. But you do notice that like Father Time's catching up a little bit with Kevin Durant. You don't know how long this will last. And if he can adapt as a player, because there are certain guys that they've been able to play so long because they've adapted their play. Chris Paul is 100% one of those guys. And the reason he's been so relevant is just he plays like a vet now, pretty much knowing the rule book, getting people into foul trouble, going at guys that are in foul trouble, and then just having real good court awareness is how Chris Paul has been so successful since he's gotten older. If KD is able to do that, I mean, because in a few years, he's not going to be able to be as explosive and quick as he currently is, which is something he'll have to face. But if he can really adapt and play like a crafty vet, then KD will play another 6-7 years. My least favorite part of the series though had to have been KD's mom up on the ref yelling at the ref after what she thought was a missed foul call on her son. Fucking sit down and shut up. She looks so annoying there, and just I hate KD so much just because his ring chasing, and just just his whole persona. He's soft, like blocks people on Twitter, gets into fights with people on Twitter, which I think is great, but he's just such a humorless just twat about it. He's absolutely the worst. He has no fun with fans. Like there are certain players that will get into it with fans and they're able to be funny. KD just seems like the worst person, like probably one of the top 5 athletes I would not want to hang out with ever, honestly. Just seems terrible. And his mother just standing there looks even worse for the KD brand. So I just tell her to shut up. Give her a T next time. Throw her out of the stadium. But it looks like now Boston will have. I think Milwaukee. They'll be playing Milwaukee. Let me pull up a bracket right now. Milwaukee's got the Bulls right now. They're up 3-1 right now. They're playing tonight. So by the time you're listening to this episode, we should know if the series is still going, if Milwaukee closed it out. But that'll be a good series. Miami beat Atlanta. They're going to play the winner of the Sixers-Raptors series. So that one's at 3-2 right now. Game 6 is on draft night. So that should be a good game. The West has been very close series so far. Phoenix and New Orleans is 3-2. That's the 1 versus 8. Phoenix is up 3-2. The 4-5, Dallas is the 4, Utah the 5. Dallas is up 3-2. Golden State versus Denver, 3 versus 6. Golden State the 3, Denver the 6. Golden State's up 3-1. And then Memphis is the 2. Minnesota's the 7. Memphis is up 3-2 in that series. So this has probably been one of the most entertaining playoffs. And there's been a lot of games where it's like, usually I'll just follow the Celtics, but there have been a lot of games where you can just turn the TV on and be instantly entertained. There haven't been a ton of blowout games. And even in that Nets Celtics series where, while it was a sweep, all of the games were somewhat close going into the fourth. And the fourth quarter gave you, if you were a Celtics fan, a heart attack just about every time, especially the spinning Tatum layup in game 1. And then you get nervous. You still know, while KD may look like he's getting older and is playing a little bit slower, he's still, like I said before, one of the best scorers in the league. And you need to really be concerned if he hits a couple shots and gets hot. But I think I knew the turning point in that series was when I believe Bruce Brown was the top scorer for the Nets. I was like, oh, this is sad. This is pathetic, Brooklyn. This is pathetic for Steve Nash and for that just entire squad. So I really did enjoy watching that whole series transpire and watching Brooklyn just look so awful and just look so bad. It was entertaining, to say the least. I believe that is. Oh, let me go over my top 100 albums. I'll do the top 20. So as you guys know, if you follow me on Instagram, my personal Instagram account at FreshLegsDiaz, you will know that I did my top 100 albums of my favorite albums of all time, and that's where I did catch a lot of guff from this, where people were like, "This album stinks." Well, it's like, yeah, you might think it stinks, but it is my favorite album. I'm not Rolling Stone doing my top 100 albums. These are my favorites. So there was definitely like a lot of my music flair put into how I ranked these. You saw there was some David Bowie, Sublime, Tame Impala, but let me do the top 25 for you guys and kind of go over that a little bit. So number 25 was an album that was huge in my childhood. One that I absolutely I loved listening to. It has to be The Adventures. B.O.B. presents The Adventures of Bobby Ray. An all-time great one that I could shuffle. And I still think to this day it's held up, like, to me, where there are still no skips on that album. Airplanes, Letters from Vietnam, Past My Shades. Um, Jesus, I'm oh, Magic. That's the one big one I was thinking of. There's literally no misses on the album, and you know, B.O.B. had a lot of great features on that album too. He had Haley Williams from Paramore, T.I., Eminem was on Airplanes too. So just an all-time great album, and one that really stuck with me through my childhood. A lot of the stuff, like I listened to a lot of Eminem when I was younger, but that kind of stayed in the past. B.O.B. has kind of been with me this whole time. 24, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. I said my favorite song if that was Benny and the Jets. Big Elton John fan. I think this is probably his best overall album. Even though it doesn't have my all-time favorite Elton song on it, Crocodile Rock, it's just his most well-rounded album and shows off just how talented of a musician he is. And it really is ridiculous to see this guy sing, play the piano, play the keyboard, just so talented. 23 was August and Everything After by the Counting Crows. I'm a huge fan of the Counting Crows, and this album is pretty close to perfect, I'd say. You've got Round Here, Omaha, Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is a tremendous upbeat song, tremendous fall song. I wrote about it for All Rock Autumn. Go check that out on the blog. You'll probably have to go way back for that. But I love that song. Omaha almost gives a weird like ocean feel to it because the beginning uh, kind of beat to it that you hear gives me like a couple sailors. Like it kind of gives me a Downeaster Alexa feel to it, which is a little weird. But yeah, August and Everything After, great album. That makes 23. Enema of the State by Blink 182. My all-time favorite Blink 182 album. No misses on that. And there's a lot of songs on it that kind of go against their norm. I mean, you've got of course the hits off of Enema of the State. Like you've got What's My Age Again, All the Small Things, Party Song, Anthem. But then my favorite song of it is Adam's Song, which is probably one of their sadder ones. I'd say that and Ghost on the Dance Floor are probably their two saddest songs. And Adam's Song is one that is super emotional, but just an all-time great Blink 182 song, instrument-wise, and just shows off their versatility and range. They're not just this punk rock band. They can do some softer stuff. 21, Food by MF Doom. One that I found recently. You know, I thought I found this diamond in the rough, and then I realized MF Doom was not this diamond in the rough. I felt like an absolute moron doing this. And I have a moment like that probably once a year where I'll find an artist and I'm like, oh my God, everybody needs to know about them. And then I tell a friend, they're like, yeah, he's been putting out music since like 2004. And I feel a little silly when that happens. But MF Doom, this is a great album. Favorite song. I think if you really look at the production of it and the lyrics, Rap Snitch Kanish is one of the best hip hop songs of all time. I'd say top 20. Just an awesome, awesome song. And it's sad that I found MF Doom after he passed away. Because you know I was like, oh, I wonder if he'll put out any new music, and then I was like, well, he can't because he's dead. Number 20 oracular, Jesus Christ, oracular spectacular. I think that's right. MGMT 2007. That is their famous album with Kids. Time to Pretend is my favorite song off of it. Electric Feel. So just an album I grew up like always hearing, but never really knowing who they were. And then I got to high school and college, and you know they're a big they were played a lot, so I kind of got into them. And I'd have to say that Oracular Spectacular is my favorite MGMT album. 19, I'm going with Night Circus by the Night Circus EP by Bryce Vine, one that my roommate Paul actually showed to me, with great songs. I think it's only like 7 songs, but Glamorana, Private School, I don't know if Sour Patch Kids is on there. I should probably know that. Don't believe Sour Patch Kids. Los Angeles is the one I'm thinking of. And then Street Punks on a Freight Train is another great song of that. 6 songs. I think 4 of those songs are awesome, which gives it enough, I think, to be 19. The 2 other songs on it are absolute duds. They're just not my favorite, but I respect why they're good and why it's good music. So I put Night Circus EP at 19. Confetti by Jack Harlow. My all-time favorite Jack Harlow album. You know, I think his next album is going to be great. But I love Old Jack, and it's weird to say Old Jack because this album came out in 2019. But the rate he's putting music out, he put out That's What They All Say and Sweet Action recently, and then he's got Come Home, the Kids Miss You coming out this year. So I would say Confetti is Old Jack, but it's when he almost kind of turned the word people were like, oh shit, this guy is a great artist. Kind of realized that a lot of people were on him, and then Confetti pushed him mainstream a little bit into the mainstream light, which it was huge for his career. But I'd have to go. I mean, the Bryson Tiller feature on Through the Night, and then I'd say Warsaw is one of my favorite songs with 2 for 1. Almost had 2 for 1 on the podcast when Mantis called him, if anybody recalls that. But 17, Long Live ASAP, an album that was massive through my years of high school. Listening to Fucking Problems, listening to Ghetto Symphony, and it still is now because I listen to a lot of those songs before football games. Ghetto Symphony. I think One Train is the greatest feature song of all time. It is absolutely ridiculous the amount of people they got on that, and like no one brings it down. That's the thing that really blows my mind away, is how nobody brings that song down, because there can sometimes be features to a song that hurt it, but this one, I mean, ridiculous. You had ASAP, Kendrick Lamar, Joey Badass, Yellow Wolf, Danny Brown, Action Bronson, and Big Crit on it. Like a ton of just a plethora of great artists, and just absolutely murdered this song. But I think I said Ghetto Symphony was my one. I think I'd change that honestly now to One Train. But that's what's so great about this song is he has a real good sad on there. I Come Apart, yeah, it's I Come Apart on there. It's another good one. Goldie's great off that album. So yeah, that one had to make the top 20. 16, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. Probably my favorite, almost like metal, like kind of rock, because there's another rock album that makes the top 10. So I wouldn't consider this one like a full, though I wouldn't consider the one in the top 10 as like a hardcore rock. This is more hardcore. Smashing Pumpkins. Bullet with Butterfly Wings is still in my gym rotation, still in my football rotation, and it gets the people going. 15, I went Sour by Olivia Rodrigo. If you can't just like acknowledge that album is great, you're a fool, I think, because Olivia Rodrigo is one of the most talented artists that is coming up, and the songs she put out, Good For You, Traitor, Driver's License, are just banger after banger after banger. I put this album up so high because because I love it, but also B, because I just respect like how good it was for a debut album from an artist. 14, I love Olivia Rodrigo, but Billie Eilish is just awesome. When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go makes it. The classic one off of there would definitely be Bad Guy, but my favorite song up there is Wish You Were Gay. It's a slower song, but really nice guitar, nice like heavy bass drop within the song that goes with her soft spoken lyrics. And I almost put another one, Don't Smile at Me, another Billie Eilish album in here, but it only had like 2 songs I really liked, and they weren't like some of my favorite songs all time. But When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go is an awesome album. That I think I said Wish You Were Gay was my favorite song, but Bad Guy is great. You Should See Me in a Crown, Bury a Friend, those types of songs that bring an album together the way she does. Just top 15 lock. I knew from the fact from the jump that was going to be a top 15 lock. 13, my second favorite album of 2021, Blockchain Planet by MC Lars. I think a lot of picks like this confuse people. When I'd put like Spose or MC Lars, or I don't know if I had any other nerdcore. I had JR Specs, I had Whale Machine. That's not nerdcore, but it's music people probably don't know. I post about it a ton, but that one probably confuses people. But I love this whole aspect of nerdcore where it's especially a guy like MC Lars does it the best, where he takes historical figures or something throughout history and immerses himself into that. A song that's not on this Blockchain Planet album, like Ahab, where he's Moby Dick, or he raps from Moby Dick's perspective, or a song like The Raven about Edgar Allan Poe, or Edgar Allan Poe, where he raps as Edgar Allan Poe is awesome. Blockchain Planet, he kind of does this with the song "Infinite Jest" about the book by David Foster Wallace, "Finite Jest," and how there's a lot of different plot lines in it. It's and how he describes it as it's Hamlet retold through the eyes of a kid at a tennis academy in Massachusetts. That's how he tells it in the song. He does another good one where he goes into a this isn't like a historical one, but he goes into a fictional character, or some would say fictional. I think he's real. It's called Bigfoot Left the Bay. He almost makes Bigfoot like a California resident where he works at Facebook and just gets sick of the commercial life and moves to the redwoods and just kind of like terrorizes people. But he's just trying to live. Um, Blockchain Planet is awesome though. Check that out. I think I said my favorite song is Atlas. It's a song about MC Lars's son. It's a banger. It's like metal, and it talks about pretty much how he was scared to bring a kid into the world during a large pandemic. So yeah, check out Blockchain Planet. The Stranger at number 12. Billy Joel had to make the list. Billy Joel is one of my all-time favorite musicians. So I believe I had Piano Man in like the 40s or 50s. But I think The Stranger is one of the best albums of all time. Like not just opinion wise. I think like if you ranked the 100 best albums ever, The Stranger would be on that list pretty high from because of I really struggled picking my favorite song off this album. I listened to I think Vienna and Scenes from an Italian Restaurant 6 times each, 7 times each, maybe to figure it out. But then I went through again. I was like, well, do I do She's Always a Woman, a slower one like that? Do I do Moving Out? Do I do the title song, The Stranger? Only the Good Die Young was another great one. So that's kind of how I knew how great an album this was and why it should be so high, was because I struggled so much with picking um, what my favorite song was. 11, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. This is Kanye's uh, shift, I think, musically into styles like Yeezus and the life of Pablo, that type of style, because it's more you see his production talent come out more than you do in like earlier albums like the College Dropout where he's just spitting bars. Kanye still is the most talented artist I think that's ever walked to the planet. Um, so My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy shows off both his talent as a lyricist and his talent as a producer. So I think it's a gorgeous, my favorite song off there because of the Cuddy feature, but awesome. 10, we're breaking into the top 10. We get a drum roll, I guess. I put King by OAR. I saw OAR live when I was younger. I still hold on to that they are the band that sounds the best live and the most like their studio albums. They are awesome. King, I actually just talked to Hugh about this. He was trying to get into OAR a little bit, so I sent him a few songs. Majority of them came off that King album, and I think those songs 1 through 10 on King are so unbeatable. Like there is no skip when you're going through, and the album's like 18 songs long, and I think that almost hurts it. If they cut it off at 10 or 12, I think you're looking at the number 3 album on this list. I'm not a fan of that back half of it, but 1 through 10 is just so ridiculous on King. It's so good. 9, the highest Outcast album on here. Outcast made a lot of appearances on here. I think 4 in total. But Speaker Box, The Love Below makes it. The Way You Move or Roses would be my favorite off there. And it kind of caps off a tremendous 4 or 5 album run that this hip hop duo had. One that you've never really seen before, and kind of solidifies them as some of the greats. The Weezer The Blue album, Buddy Holly. I mean, come on, it's they're one of the best. I think rock bands of all time, just because of how long they've been able to do it and how they've adapted over time. But I think Holiday, Buddy Holly, and Say It Ain't So, like carrying it, like being the front runners for that album, along with songs like Only in Dreams and Surf Wax America, just makes the album so awesome. Like there's such a high tier and then a lot of great ones under it, which makes the album so versatile. Number 7, my favorite album of 2021, Get Rich or Die Ryan by Spose. I saw this the day he released, or the couple days after he released it. I saw him live in Boston, and it was awesome. Like he played a lot of those songs, and this album, it's a dual sided album. There's a hip hop and a rock side, and I still can't decide which one's my favorite, because there's so many good songs of this. I said my favorite was Close to Me, um, but it changes just about every day. I love World War Blues. I love Here We Go Again. Metal Band, Self Help. Just an all around ridiculous album coming from the King of Maine that I'm going to be seeing at least twice this summer. Number 6, Watch the Throne by Kanye West and Jay-Z. The greatest combination album of all time. I think number 2 is Kids See Ghosts, but number 1 is Watch the Throne. There are no skips on this. And this was the one one of the ones I had the hardest time picking the number 1, because I was between Otis, um, Murder to Excellence, and That's My Bitch. Those are my 3 favorites. I ended up going with Otis because of just how hype I get when I hear that song. I get excited. I get goosebumps when I hear "Damn Yeezy and Hove, where the hell you been?" Like I get so excited when I hear that lyric that I was like, it has to be my number 1. But the greatest duo album of all time, and there's no comparison. For number 5 in the top 5, Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen. I think this is Bruce's best album. It's definitely his most commercialized one. I had The River on here as well, which I think has really good songs, but Born in the USA is just sick, like awesome album, and really the one that got me into Bruce Springsteen as an artist, because it has songs that are easy to listen to, like Dancing in the Dark, but then there's songs like I'm on Fire that are slower and you really grow to appreciate when you get a little bit older. Um, 4, Dave Matthews Band, Big Whiskey and the Groogrux King. Came out in 2009. I tried, when I was in high school, I tried to get into Dave Matthews a little bit because a family friend really liked him. And I couldn't. I was like, this music sucks. This music sucks. And then I got to college and I was like, just driving to school one day. I was like, I'll throw some on. I threw this album on and I was like, wow, this is pretty good. I love Shake Me Like a Monkey, You and Me. Um, Trying to think. When I'm doing this, I draw a little bit of a blank. I get like podcast brain, I should call it, where you go a little bit funny the way it is. Dive in, Why I Am. Why I was between Why I Am and Shake Me Like a Monkey, but Shake Me Like a Monkey was the song that really got me because it's the second song off the album that really got me to like Dave Matthews Band and do the deeper dive, and become appreciative of their music. So Big Whiskey and the Gru Grux King. 3, Because the Internet by Childish Gambino. Greatly produced album, that has no skips. And I think the easy choice for my number 1 song would have been 3005, but I love Pink Toes by Gambino, and then with Jen Aoki. It's such a good song. Her feature on it is so beautiful to listen to and just such an enjoyable, relaxing song to hear. Sweatpants is a great one too. Crawl is another good one. Um, I think, yeah, I'd go those are like being like my Mount Rushmore of Because the Internet songs. But it's an album that does not miss whatsoever. Number 2, I think a musician that passed away way too soon. It's probably the when I really think back to it, I was really young when she passed away, but when I think back to it now, I do get sad about thinking about how Amy Winehouse passed away and just how talented of a musician she was. Back to Black, I can listen to over and over and over again without throwing a skip in. I'm not a big jazz fan, but she's got this like upbeat, darker jazz feel that just I fell in love with as a kid and just kind of fell in love with her style of music. And I wish I wish she was still alive for my selfish reason to put out more music. I wish she was still alive for her family, but I wish I could have more Amy Winehouse music in my life, new stuff from her. because she is truly one of the most talented musicians that has ever lived. Um, and then number one, I'm sure I know a lot of people weren't surprised when I put this out, but the College Dropout by Kanye West is in my opinion, the greatest album of all time, and B is my favorite album of all time. When you for it to be, it's you can't argue that there is no debut album that even touches this because no artist has ever put out an album that's been as big with so much creativity added to it. The workout plan is an absolute oddball song, but is great. Adding skits was weird, but worked out great. I'm trying to think what other like a song like Jesus Walks that's weird to add, especially in that era of hip hop at the time, but it worked. School Spirit. Like there are a lot of songs that were weird additions at the time, but just like make sense and really, really were bangers. So that's why I got to put College Dropout as my number one album, my favorite album of all time. Um, but yeah, I think it's my favorite song, and that was Spaceship, which I think is the most perfect song ever. I think that's the all time most perfect song um, you could ever hear. But yeah, so little NFL draft, little C's talk, and a little top 100 albums. I'm in my somewhat new studio here. This is classroom, I think 104 in the American Bureau of Shipping Commons, the ABS, aka the library here at Mass Maritime. So there's a one room down here that like people battle over. So I've had like 4 or 5 people come and like poke their head, and they're probably like, "This fucking kid has been on a Zoom call for an hour so far," and it's literally just me just talking to the air. So I'm making some people upset, but I'm just gonna post up in here for the night and bang out some homework. But yeah, thank you for listening to this episode of the My Parents Office podcast, and stay tuned for more episodes. We'll hopefully be dropping this week.